Okay, hi, assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to webinar. There's a killer college essay within me, then where the heck is it? I'm going to try and find it together. Well, well, first of all, I'd like to take a couple minutes or a couple seconds to introduce the sponsors of this webinar or the people who prepared this webinar. GoED Education. They are a nonprofit organization that provides free educational services that range from things like programs to mentorships to webinars like this one and more. And their motto is that education is a right. And they were kind enough to invite me to give you guys this webinar. A little bit about me. My name is Rina. I'm a student at Princeton University, prospective psychology major, inshallah. And I have a lot of opinions about application essays. Obviously, not because I went through that experience myself. And I'd like to share some of that with you today. This is what the webinar is generally going to look like. I'm going to walk through, I hope you guys can see my mouse. I'm going to walk through a bunch of different questions that I would have liked to know when I was working on my essay. And I'm going to give you examples from my work, from my essay journey, so that you can visualize and see proper examples. First of all, before we start though, a quick disclaimer. This webinar pertains to US college essays for US universities. The UK has a really different sort of essay system. I've applied to both. I applied to universities like Oxford and UCL when I was applying to the UK, and I know from my personal experience that they require very different qualities in their essay. It's a very different kind of essay. So for today, I'm mainly going to be talking about US college essays, and this applies to like both top US colleges and like, good US colleges too. I'm also going to be talking about the main Common App essay in general, unless I'm specifying that I'm talking about the supplementals, because there's two different kinds of essays. There's the main one. If you're using the Common App, then we just call it the Common App essay. If you're applying using Coalition, it's a similar sort of deal. But yeah, I'm mostly going to be talking about this one, unless I specify that I'm talking about the supplementals, which are extra essays that you submit to each individual university. This essay goes to all of them. All right, so the first question that we're going to be tackling is, how do I decide on my narrative and where do I starting? Your narrative isn't something that people really think about when they go into starting to work on their essays, but it is, in my opinion, where everyone should be starting. The first step is for you to have the right perspective. College essays aren't traditional writing. They're too short. They're only 650 words. Have you ever heard of like a revolutionary book or like a series that like changed literature and revolutionized history that was only 650 words? No, you didn't. And there's a reason for that. It's because making characters and stories likable in a book takes a very long time. Like with the Harry Potter series, it's like, what, 7 books? You can't be expected to show off good writing skills or traditional writing skills in 650 words. Who has to deal with limits like these, though? Movie makers are the ones who have to deal with the problem of time, because they have to communicate an entire story within like an hour and a half or 2 hours. So the mindset that you're meant to be having, or the perspective that you go into this with, should be that you act like you're preparing to make a movie about your life. So you think very visual. And I came up with a series of steps that we're going to follow to get you guys started. These were the steps that I personally used, and it's these over here. I'm going to go through each and every single one of those individually. I'm going to show you how I applied them in my essay. I'm not going to read them now because we're going to read them later anyway. But in general, first of all, you gather up movie scenes and then you flesh them out, and then you identify what your strongest themes are. And in the end, from those scenes, you craft a movie trailer. And the movie trailer is going to be your essay. Why does my essay have to be a trailer? Well, I'll let you guys know. Let's compare between what a trailer has to do and what your essay has to do. A trailer is designed to be watched in one sitting, has to make the characters likable so that people want to watch the movie, and it has to choose from like hundreds of scenes, because if the entire movie is made, what scenes are you going to choose to put in the trailer? Your essay is also designed to be read in one sitting, which is another reason why it's not like books. Books, you come back to them. Books, you have patience for them because you can read them over like several sittings. The admissions officer is reading your entire essay in probably around the same time that it takes for a longish trailer to play. It has to make your character likable. And it has to choose from an entire lifetime of scenes. So you can see why this would also be slightly more difficult than this. So the first step is to gather all of the possible movie scenes in your life. And the way that you're going to do this, the way that I did it, is that I opened up a blank document. I was sitting in a room and I had my laptop in front of me, and I opened up a blank Word document or a Google Doc. And then I played myself a playlist of music that is personally like resonant with me, so music that I like. It was pretty diverse, so there was loads of genres in there, different vibes of music. And then I did this scene from Ratatouille. I sat down and I closed my eyes and I let that music play, and every single one of these swirls, every single one of these dots, everything and anything that came to mind, I typed it out. Names of people, phrases from conversations, events from my life, shower thoughts I've had, dreams, fears. You could write about your anime crush, lyrics from songs that you like, things that you have strong opinions about. Follow every single thought. Like if a new thought comes up, go and follow it. Don't stop and wait for the previous one to finish. If you have a longish thought, then type it out like very briefly, like write 1 or 2 words that will remind you of it, just so that you can know what it was when you come back to it later. The goal is that we want to create sort of like a written archive of all of the memories that mean something to you. If you guys remember these memory balls from Inside Out, remember how there are core memories? Those are the coolest and the most important and significant in your life. They don't necessarily have to be dramatic or impressive. They don't have to be like you winning a competition or like you changing someone's life by doing charity in a third world country. It could literally just be that you like pineapple and pizza, as long as you really try and zero in on the things that inflame you the most, the things that make you feel the most. Like look for the things that make you the happiest, the things that make you the most angry, or things that you're jealous of, or things that you wish you could change, both about yourself and about the world. Try and find every movie-worthy scene in your daily routine. Like I want you to be walking around in your daily life while you're making yourself coffee or you're like brushing your teeth, and I want you to pretend that you're in a movie. Like find the cool camera shots. Imagine that there's someone who's going to be making a movie about your life. What scenes, what cool scenes could be in there? Hopefully, as you start to write all of this stuff out, you're going to see that there's recurrent themes that are emerging. Like all of the things that make you angry seem to make you angry for similar reasons. If you spot these connections, then don't be afraid to focus on them a little bit. Like try and find more examples that support this, but don't compromise, the freedom of your thought. You should still like follow the thoughts that come up. Don't limit yourself too much. Here's a bit of what my list looked like. This is like the actual document that I wrote everything on. As you can see, I wrote stuff. It's not going to make sense to other people because it's very, very personal to my life. A lot of it is related to the K-pop group BTS that I really, really like because, a lot of my feelings arise from stuff that, they add to my life. Like one time they had a new music video and YouTube deleted like loads of views for it, even though it got like a large number of views in the first 24 hours. That pissed me off a lot. And so I wrote it down. Yeah, stuff about BTS. And you can see names of people too. They come up in there. There's a girl called Nora. I added her as well. The thrill of performing on stage. Like there was that one time where I performed on stage, this dance routine that we had for class, that made me feel something. So I wrote it down. Linguistics research that I did for school. A random quote that I really like the sound of by John Green. And yeah, this is what it looks like. Yeah, you can see like people's names, scenes from my life, like working in the dawn. There was a time in my life where I stayed up super late because I was most productive right before Al-Fajr. And so it was really cool. Like I'd play music and then I'd work and I liked it. This stuff makes me feel something. I wrote it down. A theme started to emerge. I noticed that a lot of the things I like doing or I did happened to have happened under a desk. Like I learned Japanese, or the Japanese letters at least. I didn't get that far into the language. But when I learned them, I was learning them under my desk at school. I used to eat under my desk at school as well. I used to analyze song lyrics in foreign languages as well. I organized a really cool treasure hunt for my class under the desk too. I read the Horrible Histories comic, which is a book I liked when I was little, under the desk at school. I used to always lose my retainer books because I had braces in like high school. I'd put my retainer box under my desk at school and I'd always lose it and I'd always forget it. I wrote all of these down and I spotted the theme that they had. The second step is that you're going to flesh out all of these details that you wrote down to reveal their depth. Rant about each point. Pretend that you have an anonymous Twitter rant account. No one's going to read this. Be very extra, be very dramatic, overshare as much as you want, as much as you can. Get viciously personal and feel everything as intensely as possible. If you're not really a person who ينفعل كتير, like allow yourself the space to do that. Make outrageous statements, like say things or type things that if you said them in real life, people would be like, Rina, no one asked, or like, Rina, chill. Write that kind of stuff. I used to write like really dramatic things about my opinions on life. If you come up with new ideas while you're ranting, jot them down so you don't forget what they are, but ultimately return back to the point that you were talking about. Explain it. Make someone else understand what it is. You see how you guys didn't know what I typed out before? When I rant about it, you guys, when you read it, should be able to understand what it means to me, what went down, and everything like that. When you're done writing about the thing, start trying to connect it to something else in your list. Say that it feels like something else or it reminds you of someone else, and then ask why, and then type why, and keep connecting as much as you can. And once you're done connecting everything together, go to a different point and do the same. Here's an example from mine. This is me talking about me working under the desk at school and how I was really glad that the teachers didn't nag at me to stop or nag at me to like focus on the lesson. And then it led me to ranting about this one teacher who used to get offended by the fact that I was trying to do something productive with my time during her session, which is fair enough, you know, it's her session. But I was upset because she knows that I'm going to do well on this anyway, so I might as well be spending my time doing something happy. But then I realized that there was a teacher who does the same thing, but I don't hate her like I hate this teacher. And so I tried to talk to myself to figure out why I don't hate her. And I realized that it's probably because of her expertise. And that connected me to another point. It connected me to a point where basically I don't respect a form of authority until they prove themselves, which sounds really, really mean. But like that's the way that I work. Whenever I'm met with a figure of authority, I sort of indirectly test them to see whether I respect their opinions or not. And this teacher had passed that test. So I was ranting and I was talking and I was connecting. Now, the third step is to identify your strongest themes. By now, you should have a pretty long rant about every single one of your points. I had like 4K, probably more, like 5,000 words ranting about all of the points that I wrote down. Take a look at your document, zoom out and like read through everything, scan through everything that you wrote. What did you accidentally rant about the most? Or which points made you feel the most heated or the most intense while you ranted? Visually clump together those related points and then try and figure out what the biggest clumps are. Like, where do you gravitate emotionally? And when you rant, make sure you get very, very personal with yourself, because that's how you're going to arrive at the truest and most sincere sort of feelings. Identify the common themes that all of these points have, and those themes, the ones that are related to the feelings that you feel most deeply and most personally, are the ones that are rooted in your strongest, deepest values. List those strongest, deepest values, list those themes, and I'll pick one or two, and that's going to be your narrative. We have achieved sincerity this way. The reason you have to do all of this, rather than just picking something cool that happened in your life and making that the point of your essay, is because when you do that, the purpose of you including it is for the sake of like the detail itself. And it means that whatever connections you're going to make aren't true, aren't intrinsic. Rather, when you include or you talk about all of the things that are important to you that happened in your life, even if they're silly, even if they're small, then you find the significance within them. That's going to give you really cool cohesion in your essay, because rather than a cool thing that happened, a cool thing that happened, a cool thing that happened, you have a big cool thing, but then you have a small intimate moment, and those mean a lot. In a movie, not every single scene is like one of those dramatic scenes where the character is winning in the Olympics and they're on top of a mountain, and there's also scenes where the person is like by themselves crying in a locker room, or like a scene where they're in their bed, like about to go to sleep, but they're staying up at night. It's those moments of intimacy that give you that sincerity. The last step is to pick all of the relevant scenes. So all of the scenes that you wrote about, plus the rants that you wrote, the ones that pertain to the themes that you concluded will be your narrative. and move them to a new, fresh document. Now, you're going to have a mess of scenes from the movie of your life, but they're going to center on one or two themes. I highly discourage you guys from picking more than that, because 650 words is not enough time to be adequately talking about more than maximum yani two values. And one would be perfect. Now you have to sculpt those scenes into a trailer. Not all of the scenes are going to make it, and the structure is going to change a lot. Have you ever seen a trailer that goes introduction, body, conclusion? No, that's not how it works. And that's not how it's meant to be working with these essays either. You have to experiment with what sort of order you want to go into. Think about it very visually. In a trailer, they have to set up the backstory, and then they somehow have to introduce like the main conflict of the movie. But that conflict has to be like shadowed to in the beginning. Like, it's really cool stuff, and you guys know it. You guys understand it because you guys watch trailers. You just have to unlock that knowledge by focusing on it. And now, good news, you're not working from a blank page anymore. Your essay has practically written itself. Like, all of the points that you're going to make are already there. Your content is complete. All of the things you're going to talk about, the way you feel about them, it's all there. Now you just have to turn it into art, aka make it sound nice. So you rewrite it in a nicer way and you trim it down to 650 words. From here on out, it's just two things that you're going to do over and over and over and over again: restructuring and rewording. Oh, okay. Here's an example from mine. This is how I worked on my structure. I took all of the details, so these are the mini movie scenes or the details from my life, and I tried to organize them in a way that made sense. For me, it was kind of chronological, but also not completely. Like over here, some of these points happened before others, yani in real life. But when I was making my framework, when I was making the structure, this made a lot more sense because it builds up on the theme. It's very selective depending on the theme that you have. But yeah, experiment with different ones. And then I used to cross them out when I would write about each one when I put them after each other. Rewording. So that was an example of restructuring. This is an example of rewording. So this is two paragraphs two paragraphs from the ranty version of my essay. I'd ranted him about the fact that when I moved back from England, because I lived in England, hence the British accent, by the way, people didn't really like me, really. They bullied me because of my accent, and I kind of kept to myself, and I was a bit, shy and not really willing to interact with people much. But then in 8th grade, I met people who liked the same books that I did. I was really hyped about the Percy Jackson series back then. And so I met people who did the same. And we worked on doing stuff together, like under the desk, which hence the theme, by the way, is, under the desk, we turned tiny homework assignments into fully fledged plays, insignificant projects into flat out movie scripts. Here you can see how I fleshed out the points that I was talking about and I rewrote them. This doesn't sound as ranty when you read it. You guys don't have the time to read it now, but when you read it, it's a lot less ranty than before. And I actually wrote them out in complete sentences. When you rant, you don't have to have proper grammar or proper structure. But here I fixed up the structure. And an important tip: never, ever, ever delete anything you write. Always duplicate and work on the duplicated version, because your worst nightmare is going to be that you had written something really cool before, but then you wanted to edit it out and then you deleted it and then it doesn't exist anymore. So do this. This is what I used to do. I used to copy paste the paragraph that I'm working on, and I'd do the first one like a different color, and I wouldn't touch this. This would be my original version. And then I'd edit this one. And sometimes I'd make several different versions, because I needed to make them shorter. If you guys can see, this one's pretty long, but this one's ever so slightly shorter. I had to work on getting rid of different things. You have to see what things you want to get rid of. Now, the next question is, which life details are worth including? A powerful essay has to have a mix of both the small and the intimate and the grand and the dramatic, which is like the movie example that I gave you guys before. It has to be full of movie trailer worthy scenes. So tune into your life and always try to turn it into a movie trailer. Like I said, while you're in the car, think about this all of the time. And keep a note open. Keep a note open in your phone. So whenever you come up with ideas, you can type it there quickly so you don't forget what it was. Maybe one of the points that you wrote back in the brainstorming phase could end up being like the perfect vessel for something you want to say in your essay now, even though back then it wasn't related to your theme. Like I'll give you guys an example. Perhaps I wrote about me liking pineapple on pizza in my original brainstorming, but I didn't really move it like into my next steps because it wasn't relevant to my themes. But now I realize that one of my themes is standing up to being different. I didn't like being different before and it made me feel self-conscious, but now I enjoy feeling different. That pineapple pizza could end up being a pretty cool detail to talk about now. Could be a pretty cool scene because you can have a scene where you're with your friends and like before you asked for pineapple on pizza and your friends made fun of you and it was pretty silly, but it really hurt your feelings and you felt like you could never ever share any intimate details about your life with them before. But then one day, you know what? You asked for a pineapple pizza. I know it sounds silly, but even silly things can be turned into really pretty things to read, and they can make like the person reading them smile. And that is ultimately one of the things that you're trying to do, which I will talk about again later. This is why we never delete anything, even the silly stuff. And it's why we write all of the stuff that we can, because you never know when it's going to be useful.
Make sure you check out the second part of the presentation, link in the description below.